Cambodia is a country in Southeast Asia, about twice the size of Scotland, and its capital today is Phnom Penh. It was once the capital of the ancient kingdom of Khmer, and was famous for its 12th century temples. In 1953, Cambodia gained independence after nearly 100 years of French imperial rule. In the 1960s, the population was over 7 million, nearly entirely Buddhist. Until 1970, Cambodia was under the rule of a monarch, Prince Sihanouk. In 1970, he was deposed in a military coup by Lon Nol, who was made president of the Khmer Republic. After this event occurred, Prince Sihanouk and those loyal to him joined a communist guerrilla organization known as the Khmer Rouge. The Khmer Rouge was led by Pol Pot, a man educated in France and an admirer of Maoism, the ideology of Mao Zedong. By 1975, Pol Pot's forces had grown to over 700,000 men. Later that year, the Khmer Republic was defeated by the Khmer Rouge. It's estimated that 150,000 died in the civil war between the Rouge and the Republic, half of which were civilians. Within days of overthrowing the Khmer Republic, Pol Pot began purifying Cambodia. In this purification, Pol Pot believed that a perfect Cambodia, or Kampuchea at that time, would have the population work on collective farms. This theory very much resembled Chinese communism, and the fact that anybody in opposition, usually the educated and the intellectuals, would be eliminated. The ill, disabled, old, and very young were driven out, and those who refused to leave were killed. People who escaped murder became slaves. Eventually, many became too weak or ill to work, and the only absolution they received was death. Minority groups, in specific, were targeted by the Khmer Rouge. The Chinese, Vietnamese, Thai, and also those of mixed ancestry were those targeted. Half the Muslim populations were murdered, in addition to 8,000 Christians. Many civilians died during the Civil War genocide, from executions, from disease, exhaustion, and starvation. The total number of casualties has been estimated to be well over 2 million. Mao Ye was a victim of the genocide. During the genocide, his 2 older sisters were killed, and his younger brother was shot in the head by a stray bullet as he and his family fled for their lives. Years later, Mao typed his experiences up and posted it upon the internet. His words exactly.
I don't remember much of what had happened, but here are bits and pieces. I remember my father coming home one evening and tell us that we needed to leave our home and to flee toward Thailand. Then I had 4 brothers, a baby brother, and 2 eldest sisters. We packed up as quickly as we could and headed toward the Thai border. After running with my father for hours, we heard gunfire. It was the Khmer Rouge. They were shooting at us and the other families that was fleeing. We all panicked. My mom grabbed me and the baby and started running. After a while, we had lost my father, brothers, and sisters. I remember being really scared. I was probably 6 years old. Suddenly, my mom was shaking my baby brother, and she put him down on the grass and went to hide in the bushes because there was still gunfire. What I didn't know was that my little brother was shot in the head when we were running. I don't remember how long we were hiding, but we walked for a very long time. Then we came to the Thai military camp with 5 soldiers. I remember one of the soldiers gave me some food. There must have been other families, but I don't remember. After a while, we were on our way to another camp. When there, we finally found my family, but some were missing, my 2 eldest sisters. I think we spent some time in the Thai refugee camp for 2 or 3 years. I remember hearing bombs going off now and then, attending the school, playing soccer, and flying kites. I think then we were taken into the cities of Thailand. We spent time in the sticky camp there, and I think then we were sponsored by an American from US. I remember my mom telling me that in the plane I got sick and threw up. We arrived in the US in 1979 and was brought to Bellingham, Washington, where my sponsor lived. My sponsor was members of the church.
The reign of the Khmer Rouge came to an end in 1978 when Vietnam invaded Cambodia and overthrew the Khmer Rouge. The Khmer Rouge continued to fight the new Vietnamese-backed government. Throughout the 1980s, the Khmer Rouge forces were covertly backed by America and the United Kingdom because of their united hostility to communist Vietnam. Vietnam eventually pulled out in 1989 due to international pressures. In the conflict from 1978 to 1989, up to 65,000 people were killed, 14,000 of whom were civilians. Normality returned to Cambodia in the last decade of the second millennium. The state religion, Buddhism, was revived. The former monarch, Prince Sihanouk, was elected to lead the new government. However, the Khmer Rouge guerrillas opposed the new political reforms, but their organization had begun to crumble. Many defected to the new government. In 1997, Pol Pot accused one of his aides of treachery, leading Khmers to arrest him. Pol Pot was released due to a corrupt trial, and eventually died of natural causes in 1998 at the age of 78. The full story of the Cambodian genocide is still being compiled, as many of the participants in the killings are being brought to courts and being sentenced to death for their crimes. From 1995, mass graves began to be uncovered, revealing the extent of the killings. Simple names for these fields are given, often only the killing fields, as many memorials are being erected in their memory. After decades of civil strife and political corruption, Cambodia enters the third millennium, with hope for renewed prosperity.